Welcome to LaunchPod, where we chat with innovators who are overcoming challenges, pushing boundaries, and collaborating to make space more accessible and sustainable for humanity, one launch at a time.
It's one small step for man.
Here's your host, Susan Wise.
Hi, and welcome back to LaunchPod, Space Technology and Research. And we are thrilled to have this guest with us today from Offworld, the CEO and Chief Architect, Jim Keravala. Welcome, Jim.
Hi, Susan. Nice to see you.
It's great to be in your world for a little while. We'd like to hear a lot more about what's going on with Offworld.
Well, the premise around Offworld is really born from our vision and passion about seeing humanity expand beyond Earth's ecosystem into the solar system. And I've always had trouble making a business work on the lunar surface or around the moon. It's a bit difficult when there aren't too many customers around. So I decided to look for a planet first that had the most aliens with paying bank accounts. And we started to build our space program, if you like, here on Earth. Industrialization of civilization. The first stage is usually mining, then followed by construction and manufacturing and fabrication. And so we focused our first autonomous robot fleets on the mining sector and pioneered the swarm robotic mining architecture. So multiple species of robots built on a modular common platform that can do a whole bunch of things like swarms of large ants. So that's really the premise around Offworld and what we're doing. We have deployed pilot robotic programs here on Earth in underground and open pit mines, and using that baseline experience to architect our lunar swarm robotic mining system.
So you're going to be building our cities on the moon or Mars or wherever we go.
Yeah, that's the plan, exactly. To take that intelligence architecture of those robots and literally have hundreds, if not thousands of these little robo-puppies mining, constructing, manufacturing on the moon, on Mars, and even in free space eventually.
Well, I think it's exciting because it's, first of all, it saves lives. So you can, look at it from that aspect, the carbon footprint, these little robot puppies they can work like 24/7, and you couldn't do that with humans.
As a system, yes. With the battery run times, we can kind of do, I think, about 6 to 8 hours per shift with each of these robots. The power consumption is quite heavy duty. Anything from 2 kilowatts steady state to about 5 or 6 kilowatts peak. That just means when they're doing heavy work, it draws a lot of power. And with the energy density batteries today, well, that can give us a good 6 to 8 hours runtime. So basically a good shift. And then we have battery swap robots in our architecture that can then replace the batteries reasonably quickly so the frontline robots can continue their work. With about 3 shifts per robot in a day, and then some downtime or maybe maintenance or just a quick cleanup, the system can run 24/7 for sure.
So you're actually doing it right here on Earth. What kind of things are you mining, or are you just trying to work more with the processes?
So our first target minerals are high-value metallic critical minerals. So platinum, copper, nickel, rare earths, these sorts of mined ore bodies is what we're looking at right now. And look, what's really exciting about what we're doing, and it's not without difficulties, I can say that, but what's really exciting about what we're doing is that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of end-of-life mines on Earth, especially underground mines. And that's basically mines where the conventional mining process is now too uneconomical to continue mining that ore body. Now, for underground mines, that threshold is reached when there's still sometimes 30 or 40% of ore left in the mine that has to be kept as the natural pillars of structure. When the mine is end of life, it can then be liable for billions of dollars of cleanup and other activities through the end of life on a permitting liability requirement. So the mining companies are desperate to find ways to reactivate the mines so that they're not burdened with all these liabilities. So that's where Offworld can really come in as our first opening niche in the business case and adding value to humanity is we can liberate billions of dollars of mineral and harvest that from these end-of-life ore bodies with our robots without putting a single person in the mine. So not only is it a very exciting and logical step for lunar mining and then eventually asteroid mining, but it's a game changer for mining here on Earth as well. So it's super exciting in that way.
Jim, what has been maybe your biggest challenge and how did you overcome it?
Well, firstly, the biggest challenge is pinning it down to one challenge. But basically, we were very lucky. We had very good partners in the mining companies we were working with. Some of the big top tier mining companies were excited and intrigued by what we have. And so we managed to generate in revenues more than 10 times what we raised in investment. So we really did bootstrap the company very effectively. The mining industry moves reasonably slowly and it's subject to a very cyclic economic nature. So the commodities world is cyclic in nature. The prices go up, the prices go down. And when that happens, the appetite for the mining companies to explore new technologies and approaches waxes and wanes as well. And so one of the biggest challenges we've had is navigating, as a small company, navigating those fluctuations whilst maintaining operations and keeping the programs going. And so we have hit quite a big road bump where we hit one of those commodity cycle downturn. And this has actually been a tough experience for Offworld as a team, but a very exciting one from the opportunity perspective. Being a pathological optimist, rubble can hit the fan, but then immediately you're looking for ways that you take lessons out of it or see where you can optimize. And this period has allowed us to really refine not the general architecture which is followed and sound, but where the entry point is to really connect with the industry and get the customers paying for ongoing services, not just the development projects.
Did you have possibly, looking back, an aha moment where you really just went, yes, this is it, when you were creating this whole company?
Yes, because I think probably several of those realizations. The previous company I founded, which we were operating for 8 years, was going to see 6 of us land on the lunar surface with enough propellant to get there, but not enough propellant to get back. So forcing us to make our own propellant and come back ourselves. Now that required a whole huge architecture and a lot of redundancy, a lot of people involved and people in space. Use a fully autonomous system, but undertake the entire end-to-end architecture, because in any business, if you have a broken link in the chain, it's very difficult to sustain the business economically. So that was the first was to let's modularize the architecture and let's have multiple suites of robots. And then I think the other big one was when we were doing our tooling developments, we really advanced some work in the microwave and electric pulse beam energy. So we use energy to break the grain boundary bonds of the rock.
Okay.
And it's kind of like Gandalf's magic wand in some ways, because when you can, all amorphous rock, a quick rock geology over here, all amorphous and crystalline rock is 10 times stronger when you try and squeeze it or compress it than it is when you pull it apart, or it's tensile strength. So if you can get inside the rock and push it apart rather than trying to crush it to break it, you're using on average about 10 times less energy. And the best way to do this is to actually directly use energy and beam that in and attack the grain boundary bonds that you want to hit. So between continuum beam or fluctuating beam microwave and then electropulse shock provision of energy, which can be a gigawatt pulse in a few nanoseconds. Between these two energy modalities, we have basically have the opportunity to usher in the era of touchless mining, to be able to mine rock without physically touching it and only handle it on materials handling and then maybe a little after nudging or sparking what would be basically broken biscuit. I think we could reduce the cost of mining by an order of magnitude. The third big moment, if you like, was, well, if we could take those technologies and use it to further refine and separate the ions of metal from the waste rock as close to the original rock face as possible. So have processing robots and grow ingots in those robots of the metal you want and just have treasure bots coming out. That could save another order of magnitude in the material you don't have to move out of the mine. Currently, we're hauling out millions of tons of ore that's less than 1% grade, 99% waste rock, plus a whole bunch of waste rock because there's no sensory differentiation of what you're collecting. So between that, we are moving millions of tons of rock out of the mine, or for a typical mine every year, and then crushing it all, which is, the actual cost of crushing globally is about 3 to 4% of the world's energy cost currently. And so instead of taking out all these millions of tons of ore out of the mine every year, we could be just taking out hundreds or thousands of kilograms of pure metal. Now that, if it does prove feasible, there's a lot of work to do still. That would be a game changer, the biggest game changer for the last 10,000 years of mining. And it's, for the most part, it's just about engineering, imagination, and the manifestation of machine intelligence in these robots. And I think all of this is coming together, especially in the next 5 to 10 years.
Before we wrap up, do you have one piece of advice that you would like to share with our listeners?
Sure. I mean, if you're starting a space business, a business operating in space, what may seem like a cliche is find customers, get to revenues as quick as possible, and do something that works. It's such profoundly pertinent wisdom that it can come across as cliched and eye-rolling. And what do these old fogies know? We're going to do it now with that quantum teleportation of bananas. So this is all great, but if you understand that there's no such thing as a space business, there's just business. And yes, you can stretch the premise a little bit. You can lengthen return on investment times, have maybe a little variation on your return of investment and your revenue generation, but you don't have much margin when you're starting those companies. So the first rule of the business is to, if you're starting a business, keep the lights on, keep income coming, and investment should be a supplement to annual recurring revenues occurring within 6 months. That should be your baseline. Doesn't mean it has to be set in stone. If you're going to veer off that, at least know what the baseline is so that you know how much additional risk you're bringing on if you're going to detract from that baseline. I think the challenge today is that a lot of us, and I've made this, let's say, learning pathway in my past as well, dumbass mistake might be another way of it, is that you start off with a premise that is way out of the normal business metrics, 10, 12-year returns of investment or break-even thresholds, which is perfectly viable in some sectors terrestrially, such as oil and gas and mining, and for sure, infrastructure is hard. But in those cases, the market and customer metrics intimately. There's going to be sales. It's just a case of do the economics work. In the space arena, beyond LEO and GEO, especially facing outwards and not inwards, the uncertainties are too significant today in 2025 to be able to confidently close the business within normal metrics like KPI. So you have to find a way to bridge that gap, especially if you want to undertake lunar surface or lunar operations. You need to figure out ways to stage it. Otherwise, you're asking someone to take an investment bet and you're going to give up a lot of your company at the early stages to compensate for that risk. So annual recurring sales, ARR, is the key as quickly as possible. From there on, you can build your business layer by layer.
It sounds like success is Offworld, and I can't wait to see what comes next. Please share with us your website.
You can see us on www.offworld.ai.
All right. Jim Keravala, CEO and Chief Architect of Offworld, thank you so much for joining us today. This is fascinating. I'm very excited to see what's happening for you on this world and in the world.
Thanks very much.
Space technology and research. It is LaunchPod. If you enjoyed our episode, leave us a review and subscribe. And until next time, keep looking up.
Don't miss an episode. Subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. Watch us on YouTube and follow us on social media. Stars LaunchPod, propelling us forward, one launch at a time.